Hello, YouTube. I wanted to do a quick video about snare drums. I've been getting a little bit obsessed with snare drums. I've started a collection. I've got a few pieces that I'd like to share. And oh, the other thing, I just purchased this today, but drum dial. This is brilliant. It measures the tension accurately, and you just place it in front of each lug. I've been trying to figure out how to tune drums by ear half my life. And you still use your ear. You get it to near where you want, and then you can use the drum dial to accurately see the tension. It's really helpful. My oldest drum. So if I'm going to go chronologically today, this guy is early 20s. It's hard with these old Ludwig drums. You know, I've spent some time looking at looking at a lot of other people's threads, but also the catalogs really helpful if you can dig up old catalogs online. This is Universal Ludwig. So basically, when Ludwig was under the Universal name, and I'll quickly show you the Universal logo here on the rim. Not sure if you can see that on the camera, but that's so back in the early 20s, they used to stamp the logo on the rims, these stick chopper rims, before I think it was 24, 25 when they started engraving them on the shell itself. And at that point, I believe the shells got perhaps thicker. This is what's called the light shell, or not the heavy, not the two-piece, which is coveted heavily. I wish it was, and I'd love to have one of them side by side. So anybody out in YouTube land, if you've got a two-piece Ludwig shell, I'd love to do a little demo with them side by side, because I'm really interested to hear the mojo of the sounds, literally in a comparison. This Ludwig, early 20s Universal, it's what they call the Pioneer, which at the time was the cheaper model. This is just a 6-lug Pioneer. They also made an 8, and some people say there's 10, but it depends on the year. But basically, when Ludwig was under the Universal name in its Chicago era, they were rolling out these brass shells. So this is brass. It's nickel over brass. So the plating is nickel, not chrome. Nickel over brass, which are really, real relics, sought after drums. I wish I had the two-piece shell as well, but this is a beautiful old Pioneer. Just put a new Emperor head on it. I'm having to play around with some 42 wire strainers. And being a 6.5 deep, 14 by 6.5, I'm going for a really fat snare sound, even though, it's got a real vintage old school flavor, but it's also got the depth. It's quite rare to find a 6.5, especially in this condition. I mean, I've just polished it, but it's absolutely pristine. And this drum's 100 years old. Have a listen. I've tuned it quite low at the moment. I'm going for a real fat low tuning. Part of the reason is with just 6 lugs, you don't want to over-tension these drums, because these rim hooks can snap. The original rim hooks can snap. However, you can replace them. You can buy some Tama ones and just use them instead and keep your originals in a bag. But yeah, the old 20s nickel over brass Pioneer Ludwig Universal from the Chicago era, tuned nice and deep for that big fat splat. I love it. I love it. I'm going to try pulling it up a little bit tighter later, but at the moment I'm just really enjoying this big fat tone. Okay, let's move on real quick. This so from 1920s, we're going to launch into Ludwig's 60s. So this right here is a Ludwig Super Sensitive, 1966. Now the Super Sensitive, it's called Super Sensitive due to the snare strainer system. You can see the ears poking out, where the strainer is actually tensioned on both sides via a tension rod in the middle of the drum. I'll show you real quick. You should be able to see this rod passing from one side to the other. That rod in the middle of the drum, when you use this throw off to put the tension on the snares, it tensions both sides equally. And it's that's why it's called the Super Sensitive. It's a sensitive system that was a little bit more popular with all the orchestral concert band stuff. So part of the reason I wanted the Super Sensitive was in the studio to sort of have a little bit more control over the snare sound. It's actually exactly the same shell as the infamous Supraphonic. So, that John Bottom and all the most recorded snare drum in popular history is the Supraphonic, the Ludwig Supra. And it's exactly the same shell, which is the chrome over aluminium. There was some Supraphonics that were chrome over brass early days, but the chrome over aluminium, which often suffered a little bit of pitting and stuff. This is the chrome over aluminium shell, which is literally a 10-lug Supraphonic, but it's got the Super Sensitive snare system on it. So basically, look, the Acrolite's pretty much the same shell as well, except they just didn't chrome plate it. So it's pretty much the same thing as an Acrolite Supra, but it's called the Super Sensitive due to the snare system here. Let's have a little play of this one. I'm still figuring out how to really operate this snare system well, but it's a little bit tight, see? No, this hasn't got fresh heads on it, unfortunately, but they're pretty reasonable. There it is. So I got this tuned pretty tight, actually. It's kind of up there. Lovely. I love these. You pretty much can't go wrong with these Supra shells. The Acrolite shell. You can tune them sort of low, medium, and high, and they're always going to sound great. Yeah, that's why they're just such a classic, renowned drum. Like I said, the most recorded drum in popular music history, pretty much. Most recorded snare drum, obviously. Beautiful drum. 1966 Super Sensitive, the Ludwig. And this is actually surprisingly good nick. The chrome really doesn't coat the aluminium shells very well. But this one is still, there is some pitting, but it's not a hell of a lot. I'm pretty happy with that guy. I'm going to grab my Piccolo snare here. This is the Pearl FFS, which stands for the Free Floating System. So that means that actually this shell, this is a brass shell. This is free floating. There's no holes drilled in it. You're able to put all the lugs on without them being drilled and screwed to the shell itself. And the Pearls are really good for this. There's quite a few drums that came out with free floating systems. But the Pearl free floating system is a really renowned one. This is the 14 by 3.5 Piccolo. And this is it's great for a real good crack, as well as obviously having the brass shell for that real defined, powerful tone. It's just such a beautiful sound, this drum. I mean, I haven't got this tuned as high. You can really crank these up, get all that sort of Jojo Mayer, almost drum and bassy kind of sound as a second snare or your main snare. But it's just beautiful. I mean, now, I also got with this guy, well, I bought separately, almost paid as much as I'd paid for the snare drum, to have the maple shell as well, which is beautiful. I'm actually itching to change and do a video specifically on the difference so we can literally compare between the sound of the brass and the sound of the maple. That's coming soon, so expect that soon. So the maple shell, the brass shell, as a free-floating system, you can just interchange the shells. A lovely little piccolo, this Pearl. First generation, so they were between 1985 and 91. And then they moved to the second generation. So this is before the, end of the 80s, early 90s. Well, end of the 80s, this would have been produced. Beautiful snare. I've also got a Premier here. Now, my Premier, I didn't have a chance to get to this one really, so let's see what it sounds like. This is Premier Chrome over Steel, so it's a steel drum. This would have been, I don't really know. Somebody might be able to help me with the date, but at early 90s, so 90s to early 2000s, I think, but possibly 90s era, because this would have been off a APK Premier kit, I believe, because I owned a kit in Singapore and for a while, and I ended up selling it with my Negi snare, which was sort of out of round, and I just took, this was more useful at the time, so I took this Premier Steel. Whoa, and I've tuned it pretty low. Yeah, so I just wanted to get some contrast actually, and because I've been trying to play with this concept of writing a different song for each different snare. But this one, they actually sound great when they're in tune. This isn't really up to scratch right now, so I'm not going to spend much more time on it. Let's get to the star of the show. Right. Now this is the Brady Jarrah block snare. Now Brady's a WA built, made out of local hardwood, Jarrah wood, 14 by 6.5. I bought this part of a Brady kit in about 2017, I believe, maybe 2016. So this is a fairly recent build. I've put, the maple hoops on later, just playing with the sound, trying to experiment, and I think it's got it a lot more focused. And I'm really enjoying it. I haven't also touched this for, well, I didn't play with the tuning before the video. I've got that cranked up pretty high too, but listen to that tone. That's just unbeatable. I mean, it just makes you want to play these things. So the Jarrah block, this is a baritone block. Instead of being ply sort of steamed and rolled into a circle, it's actually blocks of hardwood, all very carefully cut and keyed into each other. And it'd have a great deep sound as well. I might do a specific video just on this drum and show its ability to be able to be tuned low and medium, and as well as sounding great at a quite high, tight tension. Yeah, I mean, Jarrah is such a hardwood. It sparks when you try to hammer nails into it. It really has an incredible projection, and Jarrah, Brady kits are so famous, partially due to Chris Brady's expertise, just being an absolute artist, hand making brilliant drums, but also Jarrah being such an incredible wood to work with. Yeah, it's just beautiful to play. I am going to do a couple of videos in the future with working with these drums, trying to use my little drum dial to put them at high and low and medium tunings, and check out how the different drums sort of sing at different tuning tensions. At the moment, I'm working with a couple of, well, the 57, which is just a classic, on the snare close up, Sennheiser 614s on the top and bottom. They're little pencil condensers, and then I've got a little secret weapon up ahead, up on top of my head there. That's the Rode NT2 capturing the room sound. But basically, there's no compression or EQ on anything here. There is a compression on the vocal mic, but that's all. All the other drum mics are just open and dry. Beautiful. So that's the beginning of my little snare collection that I've got going on.